Good morning. It is Monday, August 30th. Kristen Boyce, we're almost done with August. It's hard to believe.
Not even believe it.
I know, right? Another edition of Mental Health Monday here with you this morning. So glad that you are joining us here live on a kind of overcast morning here in Noblesville. Kristen and I were just discussing. We had some storms roll through last night. I know some folks are cleaning up some messes. My mom, Kristen, texted me from West Harbor and had some big limbs down in her house. So I know our parks department's out on the trails. Forest Park Golf Course, for example, I know has a lot of limbs down on them. So anyways, hope you are safe. Certainly thinking about some of those across the country, though, that are dealing with it a lot worse than we are here in central Indiana. But I know we have folks watching from all over the United States. So hope you are being safe. Welcome to another edition of Mental Health Monday. I am joined yet again by my good friend, my confidant, somebody who has given so much of her time to help us work through some of our challenges. Kristen Boyce, owners of Pathway to Healing Counseling. Good morning, Kristen.
Good morning, Mayor Jensen. Yes, it was a wild night last night for sure. Electricity went out. I'm glad I'm just sending prayers for everybody that's impacted across the country.
Yeah.
All over the world, really.
I was going to say, we have, you turn on the news, Kristen, right now, and that kind of goes right into what we're going to talk about a little bit today. And boy, there are challenges everywhere. I'm certainly thankful to live where we live. But, whether it be storms here locally, whether it be issues in the Middle East, they're just people, really going through some tough times right now. And that's why we're here. That's why we started this a year and a half ago, certainly to talk about COVID, but it applies to everything we do. And I'm actually looking forward to today's topic. We're going to talk about defensiveness. And I know if anybody read that this morning, I know I saw it, I was like, defensiveness? I'm not defensive. What are you talking about? I'm not, what are you talking about? And it fed right into exactly what we're going to talk about. I'm sure everyone kind of maybe looked away when they read the topic that we're seeing today. And that's why we're going to address it. So if you're here, feel free to say hi. I know Jenna Stewart, my good friend down in the Wellingtons, has already said hi. My friend Kay Evans from Texas. Kay, hope you're being safe down there in Texas. I love the fact that we have people all over. And again, we're gonna talk about all sorts of topics. If you have any questions, tune in. Feel free to write them. We'll try to answer for you live. If not, we'll get back to you a little bit later. But before we start, I've already rambled on way too much this morning. We're going to do a exercise that I love, square breathing. Kristen, take it away. I will tell you, sorry, I'm going to keep rambling. I actually spoke at an event last week, and before I started my remarks, I made the entire room do square breathing. And it was a little awkward at first, but I did, and I think that's going to be my trademark now. So if your group invites me to come speak, just prepare yourself, because we're going to do a little square breathing before I speak. Good morning, Mrs. Hines, and it's just going to be a part of what we do. So take it away, Kristen.
I love that so much. I spoke last week too and did the same thing. Yeah. So it's a ripple effect. That's the beauty of doing this work. When you do your own work, you help other people. That's the power in connecting to what lies within. So the first thing I teach clients, and we do this every week, is a strategy that's really important when we're dealing with defensiveness, when we're dealing with an intensity or an activation in our nervous system. The first thing I'm going to have you do, which is the hardest thing typically when we're triggered, is to take a deep breath, 5 to 6 at a time. So put your feet on the floor. Very important. If you're standing, if you're sitting, pressing into your feet to ground you, to center you, to come back to the present moment, to regulate your nervous system, to self-soothe. Then we're going to inhale through our nose for 4. We're going to hold for 4 and release slowly out your mouth for 8. It's really important you're inhaling through the nose and exhaling out your mouth to release that tension and tightness in your nervous system. We're going to do this together. We're going to do 2 breaths. So pressing into your feet, inhale through your nose, hold, and exhale out your mouth. I'm going to do one more together, dropping those shoulders down, relaxing on that out breath. Inhale and exhale. I'm just kind of checking into your nervous system. Yeah, getting a little, if you need to do a little twist, feel free to twist your body. It's really tuning into your body and releasing what you might have been holding during the day or the morning, trying to get through your morning. It's a time to connect and be and remove any of those barriers or blocks. So it's going to be really important as we're talking about defenses today.
Yep. And I would say square breathing is something I do all day long. I do it in the car a lot. I do it in my office a lot. And so you can do it anywhere. I try to even work with my kids on it. I can tell you that that's kind of hit or miss sometimes. I'm sure anybody can relate to that. Trying to get, my 10-year-old can get it every once in a while. My four and five get a little bit tricky. The 5-month-old is working on keeping her head up. So, we'll get her started one of these days as well. But kids can relate to it. Adults can relate to it. I love it. I can feel my body instantly just relax and take a deep breath, especially in the age of social media. That's a huge part of it as well. So, thanks. I saw my good friend Janet Leonard say her nervous system thanks you, Kristen Boyce. So I know that's important. That's important to breathe, people, breathe. So let's talk about defensiveness. Again, I alluded on the outset, there's a lot going on, and I don't have to tell you whether it be masks in school, whether it be storms last night in your hometown or hurricanes across the country. We see our folks, our military and what they're dealing with in Afghanistan right now. That may seem like something here and now, but that's really an issue we've been dealing with for 20 years. And so you may know somebody who was over in Afghanistan and have emotions around this. So there's just a lot swirling around, whether it be at home, abroad, in your own family, you name it. There's a lot going on. Defensiveness is something we see a lot in our society. I know in conversations, and I'm just as guilty as charged when it comes to defensiveness, and how we get defensive when people ask me questions about things going on in Noblesville that I believe in. I instantly default to defensiveness. I want to go on the defense and tell you why we did something or defend why we made a decision. That certainly is probably not helpful to the conversation. So, Kristen, tell us, first of all, what does defensiveness look like? And then we'll get into the conversation around how we work through it.
First thing I want to say is we all have defenses. We develop these as children as a way to connect, belong, and survive. We don't want to make them right or wrong, or we're going to get it stuck in shame. Shame says I'm not good enough. Something's wrong with me. I'm defective. We all have defense mechanisms. And what defense mechanisms primarily do is they're trying to protect us from discomfort, hurt, blame, shame, and judgment. So we want to protect ourselves from getting hurt or rejected or abandoned. And so we develop these defense mechanisms as a way to survive. And it's really important we're defining this, because defense mechanisms also can get us into right, wrong, good, bad, all, nothing, very polarized thinking. Because again, we want to protect ourselves from being shamed, rejected, abandoned, blamed, judged. It hurts. So we're trying to protect us from our hurt and our discomfort. It's very important we're highlighting that. So we say, okay, what are some defense mechanisms? I could list at least 100. I'm going to focus on the ones that I primarily see. And again, nobody gets out of this category for free. We all have them. I have them. I mean, you said you have them, we all have them. So they're developed very early in childhood as a way, again, to try to gain some worth, value, belonging, lovability, acceptance. Maybe it's a survival mechanism as you're trying to protect yourself from trauma or abuse. And so let's list some of those. Some of those are pretty benign. They seem not real. You wouldn't probably label them as a defense. And then some seem pretty intense. Defense mechanisms typically come online when we're triggered. There's an activation in your nervous system. You have an intense response inside. You feel hurt. You feel judged. You feel blamed. And so let's name some of those. So for example, sometimes I'll see clients telling me something that is super painful, that is covering up grief. It's covering up sadness. It's covering up fear. It's covering up those core emotions we've been talking about this whole time, to try to move away from it because it's almost too painful. And so they'll smile. They're almost telling me something and they're smiling, but underneath it, they're hiding. They're masking the pain. They're masking the sadness and grief. So smiling is one. Maybe you make a joke when someone says something uncomfortable and you kind of use sarcasm. And there's a place for jokes. There's a place for humor. Sometimes you have to be aware, are you using humor to deflect, to protect, to not process those emotions that need attention, they need nurturing. So in childhood, oftentimes we didn't get that processing time. And so we build up these defense mechanisms. Maybe it's perfectionism. Maybe it's workaholism. Maybe you don't make eye contact because it feels too intimate. It feels too intense. We can use alcohol. We can use shopping. We can use social media. We can get angry. We can have rage. Those are defending, having to be right. Maybe you're caretaking. Caretaking is a big defense. Maybe you're not sharing anything and you're shut down and you're really pulled back and almost quiet as a form of a shield trying to protect yourself. I kind of made a list. Worrying is one where we're just running on a loop. We're not really processing the emotions. We're just processing the thoughts. We're not even processing the thoughts. We're just on a wheel going over and over and over the same thought because we're not processing the core emotion, which might be fear. It might be sadness. It might be disgust. And really trying to fix other people. So that's a defense. So some people might try to get so fixated on changing somebody else because it's too painful to acknowledge their own emotions. And one of the number one things that I see as a defense is denial. We're denying reality. We want to live in a non-reality. We deny what's really going on. Maybe someone's got an addiction problem and we feel so powerless over it that we even deny it's happening. We see this a lot in family systems. Denial is a powerful defense, a hard one to break, and one of the most powerful ways to change generational patterns. And so denial is one that can be hard to almost spot in your own life because you want to live in this kind of altered reality. And that's how we lived as children. We didn't know any better. So we didn't know that this is an issue perhaps, or we did, but everybody else seems to deny it. So then I feel crazy. Like, why am I the one saying, hey, there's an issue here when everyone else is like, there's no issue? Gaslighting, if you've heard that before, where someone is basically making the issue about somebody else. And so the person begins to self-doubt and question themselves. Some of the other ones are racism can be a defense. Judgment is a big defense because we're not processing our own emotions underneath these. It's really important you understand that defenses don't make you bad. They are covering up your own pain. It's unprocessed pain. That's why it's so important to connect to our core emotions. And what are the core emotions? We're going to go over these again. So anger can be a secondary. It can be a cover-up. So it can be a defense if we're really intense about something. Typically, anger is going to be an invitation for us to look at what's going on. Fear. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of fear. Understandable. Grief. We don't want to, and sadness. This is one we defend and against a lot because we weren't allowed to feel that as children. We had to be happy, or we weren't allowed to, maybe we were only allowed to show joy. So toxic positivity, where everything's wonderful, that's another defense mechanism to not processing the harder emotions. And we have excitement. Some people weren't allowed to be excited as children. That was too much. They feel like they're too much. And then sexual excitement, that we can also use that as a defense, moving away from processing those deeper emotions that are there. Not listening, spacing out. Have you ever been to a stop sign, like you're driving and you're like, did I stop at that stop sign? Oh my gosh, how did I even get home? Like, I don't even remember my drive. That's called dissociation. That's leaving the present moment to try to keep going. And so sometimes we don't even know we're doing that. We can call that spacing out. That's also another defense. Really, we could go on and on. Talking a lot can be a defense, which feels like I am right now, talking a lot. And it's so important to recognize what are your defense mechanisms that are covering up your own pain. Pain from the past that is not processed will metastasize. So if you think, I put that away and I'm never going to deal with that again, chances are you're living in a very cut off, split off part of yourself. You're defended. So it's hard for you to have deep connections because you're afraid of abandonment. You're afraid of rejection. You're afraid of uncovering all that hurt and pain. But really what that does, when you process it, we can free ourselves to be more real. We can free ourselves from anxiety and depression and guilt and shame, because those all inhibit us from processing what's really going on, which are these core emotions. So when we can name the feeling, we can start processing the feeling, we can start healing. And I know that sounds so cliche. The more we feel, the more we heal. But these defense mechanisms, we're seeing them right now all over the place. Because, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask a question involving this, because I've been playing out in my mind here on different scenarios that you might see. And I want to talk about the difference between defense mechanism and justification. Because I think about, like, on a daily life, if you're feeling guilty about something or processing something, and I use a cliche example like, oh, I can have that entire bag of chips because X, Y, and Z. Or I can, have a glass of wine or 3 or 4 the next night because of X, Y, and Z. Is that justification or is that defense? Or can you maybe talk about maybe the difference between the two? Because I think, I'm playing in my mind scenarios that I see or I might feel individually, and I'm just trying to differentiate a little bit.
Great question. I love our conversations.
Getting good on a Monday morning.
I know. Going deep, aren't we?
Going deep.
Justification is a defense.
Okay.
So it's a great question. So I'll go, well, I've had a hard day. I mean, I am so stressed out. I just need to take the edge off. Right there means I'm not processing the day. I'm not processing what someone might have said to me. Maybe someone said something really hurtful and it took me down to a place, my inner child was really hurt and sad. But instead of processing it, I get pissed. Instead of processing it, I have a glass of wine. Instead of processing it, maybe I even yell at the dog. Instead of processing it, maybe I'm like, I'm going to binge watch this whole, and I'm not making it wrong or bad. So I want to make sure we're not doing that. We're noticing. I'm going to binge watch this show.
I'm going to eat an entire bag of gummy savers.
Yes, exactly. Or I'm in the pantry just like, because I'm just wanting to take that edge off, but underneath the edge is hurt, overwhelm, fear, exhaustion. And right now with COVID, let's be honest, we're exhausted. We're grieving. We want what was, some of us. And so we're like longing for what was, and we're trying to process the as is. And it brings up a lot of feelings when we feel powerless and all this uncertainty. So I think that's a really good question on justification, because we do that a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're like, well, I've had a hard day, or you don't know what I've been through.
Well, that's what I think about during COVID. There were so many, anyone who was a parent dealing with homeschooling or grandparents, so many grandparents pitched in to homeschool or to help with quarantines. And we're doing that right now. And I saw, even just through text messages through friends of ours, about like, it's been a long day. Or there was the meme where it was like a dumpster with a fire all around it. And it was like, it's fine. It's all fine. Everything's fine. You probably saw that as well. And I think there was a lot of just defense and deflection during that time. And so we were justifying our behavior. Like I said, whether it was, glasses of wine or bags of gummy savers or whatever it may be, there's a lot of that deflection. I think it's important to stop and notice here, if you found yourself during that, as we did at the Jensen household, and I'm sure you did at the Boyce household, knowing that there are core emotions underneath that are not being worked through. And I think that's the healthy avenue here.
Yes. And you said something really important about I'm fine. Fine is feelings inside not expressed.
Feelings inside not expressed.
Oh.
My least favorite thing between Julie Jensen, every once in a while, yeah, right, I'm fine. Which means if you're any man, like it's the opposite of fine. All right. So I think that's the worst.
Yeah. So I tell couples, don't say that. Like, exit it from your vocabulary. It was safe as maybe a child to say, I'm fine, walk the line, so you can just stay out of the fray. But as adults and you wanting to have deeper connection, I'm fine, creates a barrier to vulnerability and authenticity and connection. Because a lot of times we're not fine and we feel like, well, people don't want to hear it. I don't want to be a burden. And feelings inside not expressed. It's a signal for you when you say I'm fine to go, oh, what am I really feeling? It's not for somebody else. It's for you. So that is a tell that I teach couples and I teach individuals in therapy. Like, if you're saying I'm fine, we got to check it. Feelings inside not expressed. Okay, what's really going on? And it takes a lot of work to do this. I give people a cheat sheet. People come to therapy and they're like a big feeling wheel. And have you ever seen that before? It's like a big wheel of feelings. And they're like, I don't know. This is like way overwhelming. I'm like, I'm going to give you a cheat sheet, 6 core. and you can have multiple ones at the same time. So when people ask you how you are, let's cut fine out of the vocabulary.
That's good to know. So, okay, if I catch myself saying I'm fine, let's pivot here a little bit because I want folks to be able to get some tools on not dealing with those defensiveness, but working through the defensiveness. So if I catch myself saying I'm fine, I use that as a timeout for myself. Okay, I'm clearly not fine. If I'm using that word, it's not correct, or it's not maybe helpful. It's a feeling inside, not expressed. How do I deal with that, Kristen? Where do I go from there?
Yeah, perfect. Because the first thing is we got to build awareness. Self-awareness is empowerment. People want to feel empowered. I'm like, the more you know yourself, the more you know why you're triggered, the more you're processing your core emotions, the better. So first, that deep breath. Because typically we're triggered or we're shut down or we're just we've learned to just I'm fine and go along, like that positive toxicity, right? And so the first thing is take a deep breath, connect, go, what am I feeling? Okay. Oh, got it backwards. What am I feeling? Cheat sheet. You got them right here. That's the first thing. Then you're going to try to name it. Name it to tame it means process it, metabolize it, move it up and out of your body. Emotions live in the body. So naming the feeling is huge part of the work, and it sounds super easy, and it's not at all, because it can unravel us and we can get afraid. Like if I say how I'm going to feel, maybe this person is going to leave me. Or if I say how I feel, this person is going to think I'm too much. Or if I say how I'm going to really feel, then I'm going to end up being alone, because maybe that's what happened in childhood. That's why doing deeper work, meaning processing all the things in our childhood, because we all have them, helps us to free ourselves and liberate ourselves from all these defenses we've built up over time. So now I can recognize. So here's a good example. So when your children give you feedback, listen. And I know this is hard. Believe me, I know. When children give you feedback, because I want my kids to tell me how they really feel. They will tell you pretty much what's going on. If you are willing to sustain it and allow them to have their own thoughts, feelings, and opinions, they will tell you, hey, mom, you're really angry. And I want to go, no, I'm not. Immediately, I want to get defensive. Like, you're the angry one. Look at you. You're all dysregulated. I want to immediately focus on what they're doing in their behavior instead of me taking a deep breath, noticing I got defensive and activated pretty quickly. Or let's say this is your partner. It doesn't matter. Insert whomever. Take a deep breath, metabolize, like process that feeling you have inside. Okay, I feel fear that now she thinks I'm a terrible mom. I've now made up a story about how I'm a terrible mom and she thinks I'm mad and I've gone down a rabbit trail. Instead, what I want you to do is take a deep breath. This is practice. Trust me, I don't do this well all the time. Take a deep breath and I want to go, thank you for sharing that. I can see how you felt that way. I was getting a little intense, and I can see how that landed for you as anger. Tell me more about that. Yeah, you were really scary. You're like all intense, and why are you so all worked up? I mean, I feel like you're criticizing me. Breathe, because now I want to go, I wasn't criticizing you. I love you. And then I want to get defensive. That is not how we need to respond. I want to go, oh, I can see how that really felt like I was criticizing you. And that probably created a lot of shame, and you felt not good enough. And I am so sorry I did that. Is there more you want to process? What if we did that? What if instead of getting defensive, I was able to kind of metabolize, meaning process what my kids are saying, because this is feedback in our home is all the time. Thank you, Mom, for being a therapist. And so me acknowledging what they're saying without me going back at it with, well, you did this, or no, I'm not, or why do you think that, or getting defensive. And I can feel it in my nervous system, taking a breath and acknowledging what they're saying and letting it land and processing it without it going to shame, because shame says you're a piece of crap. Shame says you're not a good parent. Shame says you're not a good partner. Shame says you think I'm terrible. I mean, we go down the shame story spiral. So in order to metabolize these defenses, we have to be aware of them and own them.
That's tricky, because I always view when I was a kid, I used to always hit a tennis ball against the garage door with a tennis racket.
Yes.
And I view defenses like that as like it gets thrown at me by, my kids or whoever, and I instantly bounce back with no, or no, I'm not, or it's a rapid fire response. It's that tennis ball at the garage door type situation. I'm not sure why I thought of that, but I did. I even thought this weekend, my 10-year-old loves to call me a Karen every once in a while. Sorry to Karens out there, but it's a common phrase now. And what do you mean I'm a Karen? You know what I mean? Like I come right back but I don't even ask the question in a like intentional explain to me way. I do it as a accusatory, like, no, I am not, instead of actually understanding his perspective on why I'm being that way. And usually it's some great 10-year-old because I didn't let him have a sleepover with 17 of his friends or something like that. But, instead of bouncing right back, letting that marinate, I like that word too, sitting in it for a minute, and I always tell our staff here at City Hall, sometimes we got to sit in some of these things, and I thrive on awkward conversations. So I want to sit in it for a little bit. But that's not easy to do.
No, it's not. You're a very few that thrive in awkward conversations. We typically avoid. Avoidance is another defense mechanisms. And WAIT is a great acronym. I'm throwing all the acronyms out today. Why am I talking? So when my child or teen or adult kid, it doesn't matter the age of your child, when they give you feedback, why am I talking? Typically, I'm defensive if I come back immediately with something. So, and metabolize it, take a deep breath, acknowledge the emotion that they're trying to share. You're trying to get to the emotion. This is the bottom line of defenses. Whether it's someone else's or your own, you're trying to get to the emotion, the core emotion. When we can get to it, we can process it, we can move through it and get to the other side and actually have connection as a result. So, but you have to be willing to look within at your own stuff. Like this is what, if we all did this, we'd have a different world. If we all knew how to do it. A lot of people didn't learn this, including myself, until I obviously became a therapist. So owning your own stuff is huge in terms of defensiveness and breaking through to get to processing those core emotions, which is being kind to yourself.
Well, that's what, I want to pivot, and we're kind of running out of time here at the very end, but real quick, and we can even pick up next time if we want to. So much has been focused on our internal, which I think is step number one, probably 1, 2, and 3. But if we're in a relationship, for example, or even just in a co-working relationship, whatever it may be, and someone's always defensive, how do we maybe approach that conversation differently if someone's in a very defensive mode?
Yeah, this is a good question, and we could break it down. I'm going to give you since we're almost out of time, 30-second response. Take a deep breath. Because if they are flipped and defensive, chances are you're going to try to defend yourself because there feels threat to you in some form or fashion. So you're going to take that deep breath, center yourself, ground yourself, because you don't want to take on someone else's energy. You don't want to take on that same response. So a boundary and defenses are very different. We don't have time to break that down today. A boundary is what's okay, what's not okay. So sometimes you're just going to acknowledge the emotion you hypothesize someone feels. And if they're so defended, they're not going to be able to connect to their own emotions, right? Because they're afraid of unpacking their own emotions. So something like someone says, you always, which typically evokes a defense response in couples, or you never, the person might say, man, it sounds like you feel really overwhelmed because you feel like I never take out the trash. And you feel really sad about that and afraid that I'll never take out the trash. Yeah, you never take it. So I'm trying to get underneath the message to the emotion. And that does not mean I am changing someone else. If someone's pretty defended, I can't. I'm powerless over that. So I'm just regulating my own emotions so I don't flip with the other person.
That's good. Well, again, we may pick up with this in a couple of weeks too, because that I feel like is a whole nother conversation on how we deal with maybe others who might be in a more defensive mode right now. So real quick, we have 1 minute left. Kristen, if somebody's clinging to hope right now, they're tuned in, they need some answers right now, they're in a bad spot, where can they turn?
First thing I want to say is you please reach out for help. You matter, you're important, and you're loved. And shame tells you such a different story. It tells you you don't matter. Nobody cares about you. 1-800-273-TALK is what I recommend. because they are trained to deal with this if you feel suicidal on any level or you're struggling. Or you can text 741-741 if you don't want to talk on the phone. We also have Prevail here locally in Noblesville, Indiana, who helps with any domestic violence or emotional abuse. And their 24-hour hotline is 317-776-3472. There's also a whole list of resources on the City of Noblesville Facebook page or City of Noblesville website. There, please go there. There's lots of resources, community resources to get some help.
Yes, but you matter. Come back and join us in a couple of weeks. Great participation today, by the way. You guys are awesome. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. There's a few questions I'm not going to be able to answer on this live stream, but I'll get you some answers later. Larry, thanks for tuning in. We're talking about mental health every 2 weeks here on Mental Health Monday, and we'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Kristen Boyce, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.
You too.